Now we left off where we got our cookie cutter template working, we had our header, our footer, and then we also got the detailed view to work. Now it's time to create a form that enables the user to vote and then also a results page where the user can see the results of his or her vote. Now before we do that, there's one thing we have to change, and that's our URL in our index.html file. Right now it's hard-coded and we're doing /poll/the question ID. What if, you had a more complex URL, /polls/user ID/question ID/text or something, who knows? But in those cases, there'd be a lot of copy and pasting. You would have to know the previous URLs in order to create your URL and so on. That's why there's a simpler way to do this using the URL tag, and it's more SEO friendly. So go ahead and say href, and then in curly braces, %, we're going to use the URL tag to output URLs in our application that match the global name of our view. So since we're going to the detailed view, it's going to be URL detail, and then what are we passing in, or what's the next slash? It's going to be the question ID. So question.id, and then go ahead and put the %sign. So all this does is it maps our URL to whatever it was before, and then the question ID after that. It's that simple. Now there's one more change we have to make, and that's called namespacing. What if we had multiple apps? Right now we only have one, but we had a polls app, we had a blog app, we had several apps, and in each app we had a detail template. If that was the case, then you'd have issues, there'd be errors, and that's why it's always good to namespace. So go ahead and head over to your urls.py in your My Site folder. And inside of this, after you include your polls.urls, do a comma and set the namespace equal to polls. Okay? That's all you have to do. And once you've done this, you need to reference your polls app inside of your URL. So head over to your index.html, and inside of this, we're going to say polls detail. Okay, so all this does is it's referencing that the detailed view of the polls application should be the URL. If you were doing the blog application, it would be blog:\detail. Anyways, fantastic job. Let's go ahead and run this, refresh, everything works. What's your age? It still works, which is exactly what we wanted. Now, the next step is to work on our form. Head over to your detail.html, and inside of this, add the following code. Once we've shown the question text, if there's an error message, we want to display that. So go ahead and say %if error message, a very simple if statement. We want to display the error. So paragraph, let's make it bolded, and then inside of this, it's going to be error message. Go ahead and close the if statement. %endif %. Fantastic. All right, so the next thing is to add a form into our web page. Go ahead and say form action is equal to, it's going to be a post method. So basically, once the form has been submitted, we want to perform an action that sends the question ID into the view, into the vote view. So go ahead and say action, and then in curly braces, %signs, we're going to say URL polls:\vote. So this is again using what we learned. And then we're going to pass question.id. And then go ahead and say the method is equal to post. Okay? That's the form. Now inside the form, we want to display a radio button and then the choices. Okay? So we're going to use a for loop for this. And before that, we need to add a CSRF token. Basically, before any post form, or inside of any post form, to make sure that data is stolen, or since you're modifying data, you need to pass a CSRF token. Okay. After that, let's go ahead and do a for loop to get the choices. For choice in question.choiceSet.all. Okay. All right. So we're gonna need a button and a label. Now, we can use buttons we can create buttons by using the input tag. Type is going to be equal to radio, and radio is the circular buttons that you might have seen in a form. Go ahead and give it a name, choice, and ID should be choice and then in two curly braces, for loop dot counter, and the two curly braces, and value is equal to, choice.id. So what the for loop counter does is it basically returns the counter of the for loop. If I'm on the second iteration, it's going to return 2. Third iteration, it's going to return 3, and so on. Now, once we have our button, the next thing is to return a label. Go ahead and end the input tag and create a label. Now, for the label, we also want to get what choice should it display, right? So for choice for loop.counter, okay? Go ahead and close that. We're going to say choice.choice text. Awesome. Now, one last thing is let's go ahead and add a space, a break tag after the label. Now, we can close the for loop %end for %, and then we can create a submit button. So once the user is done with the form, he needs to submit. So that's going to be input type is equal to submit, and then we're going to give it a value which is equal to vote. All right, that's it for the form. Again, if you have any questions whatsoever on what HTML we're using, or if something doesn't make sense, definitely post a question down below and I'll get back to you. Now, the next step is to actually write the Python logic for this form. Right now, if we save and go to Chrome and refresh, we see 15, 16, 17, or actually, you know what? Let's get back to our main page. What's your age? We see 15, 16, 17, and vote. So that works, except we're not saving any data. We're not showing the vote value. If you saw right there, it's showing double. And the reason for that is because of this over here. So let's go ahead and delete that, refresh, and now we see what's your age, our 3 options, and then the vote button. Fantastic. So let's go ahead and head over to our views.py file and modify the vote function as well as the results function. All right, we can go ahead and delete the return HTTP response. The next thing is to get our question there. Question is equal to get object or 404, question comma pk is equal to question underscore id. Okay. Now we need to make sure that the question variable exists using a try or except. And if it doesn't exist, we'll pass the error message back to poll/detail.html saying you didn't select a choice. So try selected choice is equal to question.choice underscore set dot get, and then we're going to say pk is equal to request dot post, and we're going to pass in choice. Basically, request.post returns a dictionary-like object that lets you access submitted data by a key name. In this case, we're using choice. Request.post choice is going to return us the ID, which is exactly what PK takes. Now, if selected choice exists, that's fantastic. Otherwise, we want to tell the user to select a choice. So go ahead and say return render. We're going to pass in request, comma, poll/detail.html. And then for our context, we're going to go ahead and say question is going to be our question variable. And we're going to have our error message. So comma, error message be our, it's going to be a simple string that says, please select a choice. Okay. Now, once we've checked this try and except case, let's go ahead and use an else statement. So else, if this works, if try works, we want to increase the selected choice dot votes by 1, right? If I selected a name, I want to increase that number of votes by 1. So we're going to say selected choice dot votes plus or equal to 1, and then we're going to save it. So selected underscore choice dot save. All right, once we've saved the user's choice, the next step is to take him to the results page. We can do that by saying return HTTP response redirect, and then I'm going to pass in reverse polls results. So we're passing him to the results page, and we're gonna pass in args equal to question.id. So before I explain what all of this is, we need to import HTTP response redirect up top. So from Django.http, import HTTP response, comma, HTTP response redirect. And then we also have to import reverse. So from Django.core.url resolvers, we're going to import reverse. Basically, what this last line of code does is it allows us to not have a hard-coded URL, okay? We're telling them to go to the results page and we're passing in question.id, all right? Now, it's not, the reverse function again takes in two parameters, what your destination is, in our case, polls results, and what are we passing, the question.id. Awesome. So now that we have our vote function working, let's go ahead and modify our results page. So in results, all we have to do now is get question is equal to get object or 404, question comma pk is equal to question id, okay? And then we're gonna render our template. So return render request comma polls/results.html comma question should be, I'm sorry, I forgot the quotation marks. Question should be our question variable. Awesome. Right click on your polls directory, hit new HTML file, and call this results.html. Go ahead and copy the following code from index, the extends, and the block, just like we've done before. So delete all of this, Command V, and then go ahead and add the end block code, end block. Alright, so in the results.html, we want to display two things. We want to display the question, and then we also want to display the choices and the number of votes, okay? So what I'm going to do is from from detail.html, I'm going to copy our line that gives us the question text, Command C, Command V. Once we have the question text, I'm going to use an unordered list to display the choices and the results. Go ahead and copy the following code, UL using a for loop for choice in question.choiceset.all. Okay, we want to display the choice text, right? We want to show the user what the choices were. And then we also want to display the number of votes. So we have our choice text. Go ahead and add maybe 2 dashes. And then we want to display the choice votes. So choice votes is again another variable we had. And then we also want to pass in a neat parameter, vote choice.votes pluralize. Okay? And this. Alright, and once we have this, let's go ahead and end our for loop, %, and then let's go ahead and end our unordered list. And then last but not least, we want to give the user an option to vote again. So go ahead and say href is equal to, and again using our %URL parameter, polls detailed, so we want to take him to the detailed view. And then we also want to pass in the question.id, okay? That's the href. We want to ask him vote again, okay? All right, let's go ahead and test this build out. One thing I forgot to mention was in your views.py file, make sure you have a comma after question.id in your args, okay? That's important, otherwise you'll get an error. Head back over here. What's your name? Let's say my name is Bob. I vote. You now see Bob has 1 vote, Rachel has 0 votes, and Fred has 0 votes. If you're wondering what the pluralize function does, basically it pluralizes it. Otherwise though, fantastic job. We're almost done with our entire polls application. We might have to add some CSS, maybe add some Bootstrap, but this is fantastic. Fred, vote again. We all have 1 vote. You can test out the other question as well. 15, 17, 15 has 2 votes, 17 has 1 vote. Awesome job, guys. Alright, that's it from my side, and I'll see you in the next lecture.